Hello, my name is Janie Ha, and I'll be presenting my Zika Pandemic Emergency Operations Plan for the Santa Clara County Public Health Department today. First of all, let's start with what is Zika. Well, it is a virus transmitted by the bites of an infected Aedes mosquito. It was actually first discovered in 1947 in Uganda, and since then there's been some small infrequent outbreaks throughout the years in Africa, Southeast Asia, and Pacific Islands. The first outbreak that was reported in 1907 in the island of Yop of the Federation of Micronesia consists of only mild symptoms. And then between 2013 to 2014, there were multiple outbreaks that occurred in the Pacific Islands of French Polynesia, Easter Island, New Caledonia, and Cook Islands. And then in 2015, a major large-scale outbreak was reported in Brazil and rapidly spread throughout South and Central America, Mexico, and the Caribbean, prompting the World Health Organization to declare Zika to be a public health emergency of international concern on February 2016. Here is a visual map of how Zika started along the temperate zones on the equatorial belt and has since spread to other parts of the world. Normally, Zika infections are mostly asymptomatic or only cause mild symptoms of fever, headache, rash, joint pain, and red eyes in humans. However, the recent outbreaks have shown an association between Zika and fetal birth defects with pregnant women, and in rare cases, Guillain-Barré syndrome in adults, where the immune system attacks a person's own nervous system, leading to muscle weakness and paralysis. Of date, Zika has been found to be transmitted by bites of infected mosquitoes and also for sexual contact, where local mosquito-borne transmissions has been reported by over 60 countries around the world. Currently, unfortunately, there's no FDA-approved medications or vaccines for the treatment of Zika. Thus, the main focus to combat this pandemic depends on primary prevention and vector control. Here you can see the devastating effects of fetal birth defects of microcephaly linked to Zika, where babies are born with an abnormal head and brain development that can lead to seizures, developmental delay, hearing loss, and vision problems. And a bit on the Santa Clara County in California. It's located south of the San Francisco Bay Area, with an estimated population of 1.9 million residents recorded in 2014. It's an extremely ethnically diverse region in a large metropolitan area. 37% of its residents are foreign-born. And due to its population size and density, and also active tourism attractions, the Santa Clara community can be vulnerable to the spread of pandemics by travelers or other threats such as bioterrorism attacks. And in addition, the World Health Organization estimates that Zika will reach most of Americas by the end of 2016, which includes the majority of the United States. You can see from this map from the CDC that shows areas of the US where the Aedes mosquito that transmits Zika are likely to inhabit on the left side, highlighted by the blue areas, which include the majority of the state of California. And here are the crucial steps to an effective emergency operations plan, which include first, the delegation of the Public Health Department in its responsibility for gauging the severity of the pandemic, and if needed, the Emergency Operations Center is activated under the discretion of the Director of Emergency Services. And a mutual aid agreement is formed between partners in the county, including local hospitals and healthcare facilities, and if needed, additional aid may be requested from the CDC and FBI, so forth. And in the county's communications plan, it's very important for the public health department to have an effective plan using multimedia methods, including the local media, internet resources, and social media that's easily accessible by the general public and its staff. And here, the public health concept of operations has major components. First, we start with the most crucial component of mitigation strategies to minimize the health impact of the Zika pandemic, where the Santa Clara County Public Health Department's main role is to educate the public how to take preventative action to protect themselves, including wearing personal protective equipment, such as EPA-registered insect repellent, permanent treated clothing to dispel mosquitoes, safeguarding their homes with vector control procedures, such as adding screens to the doors and windows, removing all standing water that can be breeding grounds for mosquitoes, and using the World Health Organization approved bed net. And avoiding travel to mosquito endemic areas, especially for pregnant women, adhering to safe sex practices, discussing pregnancy planning with the healthcare provider, and also monitoring for signs and symptoms of Zika and know when to seek medical attention as appropriate. And also, the Public Health Department is responsible for providing the most updated guidelines to local hospitals and healthcare providers in order to monitor and control the spread of the pandemic. And next, the Public Health Department's role to estimate the needs of the affected community members by working with local media and healthcare providers to disseminate the warning signs and symptoms of possible Zika infection to the public and provide the recommendations for seeking medical evaluations. And so the Public Health Department can hold training seminars in the community to address concerns and educate the public to take these protective actions, and can function to both monitor and also elevate the public's level of disaster awareness and preparedness. And also, the Public Health Department's role in monitoring clinicians' reports of suspected and confirmed cases in the community on an ongoing basis, and to survey local hospitals, clinics, pharmacies, drugstores for adequate stocks of necessary supplies, such as insect repellent, water treatment tabs, etc., that would be in great demand. And then next, which leads to the Public Health Department's role to ensure the proper allocation of resources in the community. As mentioned, unfortunately, there's no treatments or vaccines available currently for Zika. So thus, in order to highlight the importance of prevention, the Public Health Department will work with local charity organizations to assemble and distribute Zika prevention kits at health clinics, drugstores, community centers, training workshops that we mentioned, and also especially targeting at-risk pregnant women. And to work with local hospitals and clinics to ensure that they have adequate staff, resources, and training to know how to provide care regarding Zika. And lastly, to analyze the response efforts to the pandemic and gauging its effectiveness, the Public Health Department will work with the CDC and also the California State Department of Health, for an ongoing epidemiologic investigation of the pandemic. And in addition, it will also survey community members during all phases of the Zika response, solicit feedback for continued improvement, and also to maintain flexibility to modify components of this emergency operations plan, as necessary. Here is the components of a CDC recommended Zika prevention kit, which, as you could see, includes a World Health Organization approved mosquito bed net, EPA Environmental Protection Agency registered insect repellent, permanent spray to treat clothing, and standing water treatment taps to kill off mosquito breeding grounds, and last but not least, condoms to prevent sexual transmission of Zika. And here are some examples of the natural, technological, and human caused disasters that can pose risk to the Santa Clara community. Particularly of note is the sources for the county's water supply can be vulnerable and needs to be fortified to prevent them from becoming mosquito breeding grounds. That would be a major concern in the Zika pandemic. And you can see here are the components of the community training session that we talked about, where the workshop would be geared towards community members for the purpose of both increasing public awareness and knowledge of primary prevention, and to encourage individuals to take these active measures to protect and safeguard their own health in the event of a pandemic, which can also help to decrease mass anxiety and hysteria regarding the pandemic in the community. The long-term response strategies here outlined. One highlight to focus is, again, safeguarding the water supply by eliminating all potential sources of standing water that can become mosquito breeding grounds, and to focus on fortifying both individual homes and public buildings, which includes homeless shelters and so forth, with mosquito control procedures that we talked about. And here the long-term recovery aid is rather extensive. As you can see here, the U.S. administration has set aside $1.1 billion in emergency funding for both like the CDC and the NIH, etc., to help combat Zika. And not only that, the World Health Organization and its partners have launched an international Zika strategic response plan to help mitigate the pandemic. So as you can see, there are many components here that requires the coordination of a variety of both governmental and public and private organizations. And of course, a lot of the components of long-term recovery aid also rest on individual community members' responsibility to remain vigilant, like we mentioned, to protect themselves with appropriate measures. And the county's public health department will play a big role in public education and also maintaining their disaster threat awareness. So again, the take-home points here is, as we mentioned in the pandemic, where unfortunately there's no vaccine or treatment for Zika, we have to focus on preparation and prevention, and also effective communication to the public. We have to do our best to try to educate the public so that they would have a disaster awareness and know to protect themselves. And also, the public health department plays key roles in surveillance and monitoring of the pandemic, particularly distributing these Zika prevention kits to at-risk pregnant women, for example. And last and not least, combating this Zika pandemic will take a worldwide coordination of efforts. the future, if additional time is allotted, additional annexes that I like to include for this plan is actually expanding on these efforts outlined by the World Health Organization, where there is an international Zika strategic response plan to combat Zika. Since this is an area where the US can learn a lot from other countries that have much more experience and expertise, for example, on vector control, and extermination of mosquitoes. And it's very important for authorities to share information on Zika, since there is still a lot of unanswered questions regarding the progression of this disease, particularly on the development of an effective vaccine and treatment, especially at risk for at-risk pregnant women, which hopefully can be developed in the near future, because it's very much in dire need. And here's a list of my references for my presentation, and thank you very much for listening.